times that I've cried, and it was worth it. Does that make sense? In other words,
Yeah.
it represented a time in my life or a state in my life where you know what, there is only one way to express myself, and that is through a burst of whatever was bunched up here, whatever was clogged up here, and it's just like kind of that ugly cry kind of feel. And I don't believe that I believe or buy into any more emotion. I'm saying physical, tangible emotion than that. So I've got these two kind of like polarized situations where I am highly emotional, but the thing is, it's only within context. Like I'm
Yeah.
not going to be, yeah, I don't believe in the fact that people or I'm saying the world around you cares so much about how extravagant you are or how like boastful you are or how confident you so are. I'm saying to you, your personality doesn't actually matter that much to other people anymore. I'm saying around you. And so I think a lot of us, a lot of men in general, have now diluted their presence, is what I'm trying to say. We've diluted our
Yeah.
presence within communities, within society, because nobody cared before, and now they care even less, you know, to hear what
Yeah.
you've got to say. The thing is that we are in an age where, for example, and I'm going to liken it to white people, and fine, it's white people must, we know it, it's fine, it's fine. White people cannot say anything right now, which is fine. They mustn't say anything in general across the world. They're not allowed to say it, right? But and because they've said too much and done too much, unfortunately, in the past, now they must sit quiet, right? Okay, so what? I'm saying so what? So we don't get our part as white people. Get over it, right? My issue here's the problem now is that men, because they have dominated the narrative of society, culture, norms, like
Yeah.
everything. For the mass majority of human civilizations, whatever life on Earth or lifespan on Earth, that we can't say anything now either. We've been rendered, as you said there, mute, you know?
Yeah.
So I can see absolutely the context within, let's say, a racial line, but I cannot see why men all of a Sunday, and I'm saying to men, to young boys, because it's been long enough for us to lose. We don't know what's going on. Is that
Yeah.
genuinely why men are suffering right now?
So while you brought up so many issues there, so let me try and I think I need to make about four or 5 points
Sure.
with regards to that. I think, if you look at South Africa's climate in general, right? Um, I I think we've got a big issue with the kind of masculinity that is in our country. I mean, with Women for Change and the incredible work that they've done to eventually get the president to declare it as a gender-based violence as a national disaster or crisis, as the president put it.
Yeah.
Um, I think when you see now everybody's making their profile pictures purple and everything, but there are men who are now making their pictures green in defiance of this movement, right?
Yeah.
And like, I've seen some comments men made where it's like, yeah, well, if they don't want to get killed or slapped around, then they shouldn't talk back to us, or they shouldn't do this, or men who are making their profile pictures purple are gay. Like
Yeah.
there's a real evil that's out there in terms of that mindset and not understanding. And I think that's where the largest issue comes with, is that it's very difficult to sit down with these men and be like, okay, you need to express yourself in a better way, because they don't see anything that's wrong with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to address them for now. That's its own issue.
Sure.
Um, that actually requires some sort of rehabilitation. But like for the daily men, the ones who are busy committing suicide, um, are the ones who still feel lonely despite them having a wife and 3 kids, despite them, they don't really have any friends, and they can't really speak up, and they can't necessarily speak with any sort of authority because that might be seen as some sort of abuse. So I'm not saying men don't abuse in that way, but I'm saying is some men are being manipulated into not being able to stand up for themselves.
Okay.
One of the spokespeople, Women for Change, put it very nicely. She said, um, and again, I don't 100% agree with the statement, but she said men speak to other men about their issues because they value a man's opinion over a woman's. I think that is true in some contexts, but I also think that, with a lot of the men that I dealt with, and let me say 60 to 70% of them, right, who confessed that they broke down in front of their partner, in front of their female partner, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm actually part of the statistic where they were judged after that. They were treated differently. They
Yeah.
weren't treated that much respect after something like that happened.
In the US, for example, during the 1970s and 80s, the percentage of men who weren't married by age 40 were in the single digits. But by 2021, that had ballooned to 28%. As young men struggle to excel in life, they tend to appear less attractive to a lot of women. Word on the street is that young women just can't find a good man anymore, so many quit dating altogether. But the culture has also shifted. According to the Washington Post, the Me Too movement of the mid-2010s caused men to be reluctant to approach women in real life for fear of being perceived as a threat.
We're going to talk about the consistent phenomenon of men not approaching women when they're out, when they're at the coffee place, when they're at the workplace. It's, I guess, just a plague upon society that is impacting young women right now who want to be approached and who want a little bit of attention to be paid to them. In the age group of 18 to 25, for young men, around 50% of them say they have never approached a woman, not once, not ever. Now, when asked why they can't find this drive to do so, most of them are expressing that they don't want to be seen as a creep or be accused of sexual harassment in the wake of this whole Me Too movement thing that's happened.
That being said, I've heard and seen a lot of stories about how young men behave out there, and they're really not helping themselves.
I have only gone from like the boy meets girl to like hell level destruction. This guy at the gas station comes up to me. He is smoking a cigarette, blows the smoke in my face and says, "I really want to hang out with you tonight." I said, oh.
So like most things, there's two sides to this. Reduced only to dating apps, men tried their luck for companionship there. Unfortunately, it's been a rough game. Each woman would receive thousands of matches, while it's not unusual for a man to be swiping for days and not receive anything. As for the last layer in a sandwich of bad misfortune, there's also a forming political polarization between the genders. Gen Z men are swinging conservative, while Gen Z women are more liberal. The end result is a silent gender conflict among young people, and more young men end up being single than ever before. Even the men that are doing better, the ones that are out of the house, possibly married, and building families, there's still remarkably similar issues. As Richard Reeves puts it, quote, "The sense a lot of young men have is not being sure that they're needed, or that they're going to be needed by their families, by their communities, by society," end quote. Both groups are now struggling more than ever to find a driving force, to find meaning. They are losing a sense of purpose.
Guys who are providing for their families and everything that are being manipulated by women, the amount of women and the amount of men I've heard complain that if they want to say no, but you can't, for example, go dressed in whatever that is to go and chill with your girlfriends, men are going to hit on you. Like, I'm your husband. I can't have female friends, for example, which I don't mind because I want to honor you. You can't dress like that and get attention from guys. Then it's, oh, you're being controlling. Oh, you're being manipulative. That's a man expressing himself saying, I've offered this boundary to you that I'm willing to adhere to. I'm not saying that I can go and flirt with women and you need to sit outside dressed like a nun. No, absolutely. And I see men feel so disenfranchised, feel so lonely that again, like you said, we can't speak out because also because of the damage that other men have done.
How does it get from that particular point to a man wanting to commit suicide or committing suicide?
So as someone who's dealt with mental health issues as well, I was on a talk show once, and we had men who suffered from different things. One guy couldn't work. One guy had a terminal illness, and some guys like in their workplace necessarily feel neutered. Some people in relationships, and all of the guys were talking about this one thing about how this sort of depression and everything sinks in,
Yeah.
and so I'm looking at it from many different angles. Is that there's no safe space for men to talk. Masculinity in and of itself is not toxic, but when men want to, so how can I say this? I think there's a brilliant book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Wild at Heart,
I
by
don't
John
read
Elder.
books.
Oh wow.
I only listen to audiobooks. If it's not an
Okay, I'll
audio,
try and
I
find the
can't.
audio for you.
Never again will I
Um,
read a book after university. Never.
but it speaks to the nature of man, right? A
Yeah.
lot of things are demonized. For example, men are more naturally aggressive because of testosterone, right? Men are more naturally competitive. Like whenever I see my guy friends or whatever, we hug. I love that I hug my friends, but then after that, it turns into where you're trying to do some sort of judo takedown on your friend. That's how we greet each other, and
Yeah.
that's like a step in. But and
Uh,
and even when you see boys play, they're a bit more
yeah.
aggressive. They fight in with sticks. They
Competitive. Yeah, that's it.
and
Yeah.
girls can't do that. But the proportionality between aggression in men and women is very different,
Yeah.
right? But men need an outlet for that. That's why I advocate for things like fight sports. But also, um, another thing is that, like, yes, people say down with the patriarchy and men need to express themselves, but there's also what I feel almost like a kind of trend to feminize men to make them more acceptable. When, to be honest with you, men just want to feel like they're contributing something. Men just want to feel like they're building something. Men want
Yeah.
to feel valued.
Yeah.
But where the other side and everything comes in is that, okay, you're providing for your family. Yes, your wife may be working as well. But to be honest with you, the man feels a bit better, not necessarily to stroke his ego, but he feels better when he's, for example, the main breadwinner of the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
He feels like he feels powerful when he's had an incredible workout.
Masculine norms.
When he
That's it.
yes, like when he learns a
Yeah.
new skill and he's busy with something. So even in my focus groups, we do a lot of skills sharing. So like, do you want to be able to cook? Do you want to be able to know how to service your car, do an oil change or something? And men feel great in bonding with that. But a lot of that has been demonized because of things like the patriarchy, where it's like, oh no, all things masculine is oppressive to everybody.
Around 2016, the dialogue around young men and a loss of sense of purpose started to gain traction. In the Western world, it was most famously expressed by the confusion in why figures like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan were suddenly popular among young men. A decade ago, these online personalities filled a hole which was routinely overlooked as a target audience, male role models for young men. Like it or not, the online spheres they created provided direction to young men who found themselves aimless in a rapidly changing world. The conversation took on a more academic flavour in 2022 when Richard Reeves published his findings in his book Of Boys and Men. It highlighted a disparity that he had to research to believe. At the same time, another author, Scott Galloway, started touring the country with a similar message. His emphasis, though, was on later education, employment, and dating as an adult. When on a podcast by Chris Williamson, the open statistics he shared were pretty revealing.
I have friends who have 2 daughters and a son, and I'm saying this metaphorically, but loosely speaking, the daughters at Penn, the younger daughters working at a PR firm in Chicago, and the son is in their basement vaping and playing video games. Young men, 7 to 10 high school valedictorians are girls. For every 1 male college graduate over the next 5 years, there's going to be 2 female college graduates. 93% of mass shooters are men, 3 times more likely to overdose, 4 times more likely to commit suicide, 12 more times more likely to be incarcerated. They do worse in single-parent households. For some reason, girls have the same outcomes in a dual-parent household versus a single. We have more single-parent households. Our education system is biased against men. Men on a behavior-adjusted or boys on a behavior-adjusted basis are twice as likely to get suspended for the same infraction as a girl. 2/3 to 80% of all primary and secondary teachers are women, and understandably, they're going to champion little girls who they see themselves in.
I'm sure you've seen in the news, the Westbury community has been absolutely devastated by drug addiction, by gangsterism and
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
The ones who are to stop that, the ones who are to say to the young men, look, this is not acceptable, are men.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying women can't do that, but the women are getting involved. There
Yeah.
are some amazing happening in elders with
Yeah.
women breaking into drug dens and dealing with all of that. But like with me, for example, I have incredibly powerful and strong women in my family, right? Um, very, very powerful, very strong, strong-minded, strong-willed. They'll always say their opinion or whatever, but they will be the first to tell you that they are not feminists.